On behalf of VMUG, I'd like to welcome you to today's webcast, View, Manage, and Troubleshoot Your Virtual Data Center Like a Pro with ControlUp, presented by Yoni Avital of ControlUp. Thank you for participating in today's webcast and for your continued support in the global VMUG program. Before we begin, I have 3 quick housekeeping items. First, today's webcast will be recorded and available for on-demand. You'll receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast, so be looking out for that. Second, a Q&A session will follow today's presentation. All questions will need to be entered in the question window near the bottom of your GoToWebinar screen. Third, there will be a short online evaluation that pops up as you exit the webcast. Please make sure to take a minute and let us know what you thought of today's session and what you might like to see going forward. All right, let's get started. I would like to introduce you to today's presenter, Yoni Avital, co-founder and COO of ControlUp. Yoni, I would like to turn things over to you.
Hey everyone, Annie, thanks for having us. This is a great pleasure. So as Annie mentioned, my name is Yoni. I'm the COO and one of the co-founders here in ControlUp, and I'm going to walk you through the product today. We'll have mostly live demos, so it's going to be really fun. I encourage you guys to ask questions. The whole point of this webinar is to educate you on ControlUp, on the various features. I think you will be pleasantly surprised, especially the newcomers. So stay tuned. Okay, so this is the agenda we planned for today. We'll spend a few minutes on the slides. We'll start with a brief overview of the company. We'll review the architecture. I think it makes sense to quickly understand how the product works before we actually show the feature set. And then, as promised, most of today's agenda will be live demos. We're going to focus on some of the most common use cases we see customers out there use ControlUp for. Should be relevant to anyone managing, either a vSphere environment, Horizon, or any other VDI solution, Windows servers. So it's pretty generic. Hopefully, all of you will find your golden feature for your environment. Towards the end of the demo, we'll switch over to our analytics platform called ControlUp Insights. And the small treat I have for you guys, especially for the guys out there who are familiar with ControlUp, I'm going to show, probably for the second time ever, I'm going to show a sneak peek of the upcoming ControlUp 7.3 release with some really interesting features, especially for vSphere admins. So make sure to stick to the end. Okay, so quick company overview for those of you who are not familiar with ControlUp. We have been out there since 2011, growing really fast in recent years, which is great. We are roughly 100 employees. The HQ is based in the Silicon Valley. R&D and engineering is based here in Israel, where also I'm based. The rates of acceleration and adoption of large customers is phenomenal. If I'm looking on the last few quarters, we have onboarded customers like T-Mobile, Aetna, Verizon, Best Buy. So things are looking really great. We are working strong in both the generic server virtualization market, the VDI markets, and you will soon see why. So just some brief facts about the company. So what we do, right? We like to focus on 3 major areas. First, ControlUp is meant to be one of the best IT operation tools out there, both for the sysadmins, DevOps, and IT Ops team in enterprise environments. As you can see on screen, we support all the major compute environments, whether it's on-prem. We support all the major hypervisors, anything from vSphere all the way down to Hyper-V and Nutanix, and also the Citrix hypervisor. We have our own agent, which can run in-guest on any Windows-based device, whether it's Windows client, servers, whatnot. And we also support cloud-based workloads. We already have API-based integration with Amazon. We are working on an Azure API in the upcoming release. From a use case perspective, obviously we're a monitoring solution, so you will see the familiar metrics and alerts, but more than that, we're a troubleshooting, analytics, and remediation tool. And that's something which really puts us kind of like a unique solution in the market. And you will see it in the demo in a few minutes, but essentially we provide a real-time view, which allows you to understand what's currently causing bottlenecks on your hypervisors, on your servers, or VDI endpoints. We also provide remediation platforms, another big differentiator. So we're not just displaying the data, we allow you to actually interact with that, and by using built-in actions or scripts fix issues. Finally, analytics. I know a lot of companies out there are claiming they're doing analytics these days. I'm going to show you 2 or 3 reports which are fast, intuitive, and provide great value with minimal effort. So stay tuned for the last part. So this is not a marketing pitch, so I'll skip that guy here. Okay, so the architecture, right? So this is obviously high level. Any questions on this, feel free to shoot an email to support or reach our sales department via the website. So essentially, ControlUp works as follows. ControlUp console, this is the major component that provides the real-time visibility and the ability to run remediation actions. This is a .NET executable you can download from our website. It's running locally on your the sysadmin endpoint or on management servers, and it's directly connected to the various data sources I just mentioned. So we essentially support 2 modes of data collections. One is agent-based. This is where we actually go inside the Windows Guest OS and pull some advanced metrics you'll see in the demo. And we have various agentless data collection methods. We work with, as mentioned, the vSphere APIs, Nutanix, Hyper-V, Amazon, Azure is coming. So we kind of combine agent-based metrics with agentless API remote queries, and we combine them on the same real-time interface to provide a full picture. It's pretty cool. You will see it in a sec. The other component you deploy on-prem is the ControlUp Monitor service. Sorry. This is a code which is pretty similar to the real-time console, but it's running as a Windows service on dedicated servers, and it's collecting the same real-time data sets, but it's in charge of 2 major efforts. One is to provide 24/7 alerting on any trigger you might configure in your environment, and secondly, it's in charge of continuous data uploads to our historical reporting and analytics platform, ControlUp Insights. Okay, ControlUp is a hybrid cloud solution. So the backend, the control plane, the database servers, the license server, the web servers, everything is hosted on our Amazon Geo cluster, which means installation is really easy. You guys just need to deploy the real-time console, the monitor service, and the various data collectors, and we take care of all the backend, database servers, etc., which means POC or production deployments are really fast and simple. We do also offer a fully on-premises module. So we have on-prem installers, which allows you to install the ControlUp backend servers yourselves. Obviously relevant for government or financial organizations who can't work with a cloud-based solution due to compliance or other reasons. Okay. So as promised, again, we are moving into the live demo part. This is the scenarios I'm going to cover. And again, feel free to ask questions and reach out. So we'll start with the storage performance scenario, which I think is really interesting, both for guys who are managing SQL servers, database servers, web servers, but obviously also VDI environments, which probably are the one to hurt the most when IO latency becomes an issue in the storage environment. Okay, so what you're seeing on screen right now is ControlUp 7.2 real-time console. Okay, we'll start with a brief overview of the console and what we're seeing here, and then we'll dive into the demo use case. So on the left side here, you can see the tree that contains all the managed objects, everything we actually manage and monitor with ControlUp. We support quite a few integrations. Let's start with the hypervisor support. So as mentioned, we support all the major commercial hypervisors. You can see here the list. All of them are working using remote API queries. So if we look, for example, on the vSphere integration, you will see here that we essentially request the customer to configure the vCenter web service and provides valid credentials. That's it. Once this is configured, we will start pulling data using vSphere API regarding your host and VMs. Basically, every 20 seconds, obviously, it's configurable. The same concept exists also for the Amazon Cloud connection, for the Citrix Zen Desktop API integration, and for the NetScaler API integration. So all of these are working without any agents, simply by running remote API queries. What you see here is all of what we call managed computers. So these are Windows-based computers, which are running the ControlUp agent, which is in charge of advanced data collection regarding entities like sessions, processes, advanced user experience metrics, disk and network IO metrics. You will see it in the demo, but it's pretty advanced, pretty cool. If anyone is worried about Linux support, stay tuned for the 7.3 sneak peek we'll do in the end. Now, on the right side, obviously, once all of these data collectors are configured and connected, ControlUp will populate these real-time views with data. Okay, and essentially, this is categorized based on entities. So the host view obviously shows you the hypervisors. So you can see here we have quite a few hosts in our corporate environment. We have a bunch of ESXi, sorry, hypervisors. We have Hyper-V, we have Nutanix, and Zen Server. If I switch to the computers view, you will see, in our case, something like 450 virtual machines. These are coming from the various hypervisor connections and the agents data collectors. We have flat views that shows all the user sessions. Again, if this is an end-user computing environment, we even go down to show you each and every process running on your managed computers. So this is like a unique trait in ControlUp. We show you a real-time view that contains each and every process in your environment. It's a great engine to find issues really quick. We have other views. Some of them we'll cover in the demo. But I do want to move on and start with the first demo exercise. So we're now looking on the hypervisors. For each entity, we have essentially two types of columns, two types of metrics. One is what we call metadata columns. This includes things like the hypervisor model, the number of cores installed, CPU, etc. And we have live performance metrics. So for us, we have interesting things like real-time CPU usage, memory consumption, running VM count, IO latency, quite a few metrics. All of them are displayed here. You can obviously play with the number of columns presented. You can switch between presets. One thing which is important to notice here is the stress level column. The stress level is kind of like an aggregated weighted average, which looks on each and every performance metrics we're currently collecting, and based on a pre-configured formula, it's showing kind of a scale between none to critical. Okay, all of this can be configured. We actually have a configuration screen which allows you to configure the red and yellow thresholds for each metric, and B, it allows you to configure the weighted average this specific metric will contribute to the stress level. So if you see here, for example, the CPU metric, we have an 80% and 90% thresholds, and the number here is by how much this specific metric will affect the stress level. And here you can see the various configurable numbers for the stress level scale. Okay, so now that we know a bit more on what we're looking for here, we can see we have one ESXi box which is on critical stress. In ControlUp 7.2, we really enhanced a concept we call virtual expert, which allows you to intuitively understand what's causing an issue. So I'm going to double click on this column here, and ControlUp will focus on this specific hypervisor, and will put on the left side all the metrics which are currently crossing the threshold. Okay, so quite quickly we can see that the IO usage is really high. I'm going to double click the data store read-write IO metric. Now, a few things happened here, right? First, ControlUp drilled down into the VMs view, and it's now showing me the 51 VMs running on this specific ESXi box. Okay, B, ControlUp automatically selected the relevant presets, which shows me the disk-related metrics which might cause the high IOPS issue. And finally, ControlUp automatically sorted the view based on this specific column, and it's highlighting this using this nice border, so I can, focus on the issue at hand. So, for obviously, it's quite clear that we have a single virtual machine, CRDSH01, causing the IO issue on the box. And now I can continue the exercise, right? I can drill down, I can double click on this specific column to see what's going on. Now, the data you're seeing here, some of it is coming from the vSphere API integration, some of it is coming from the Windows agent running inside the box, right? So for example, virtual disk read IOPS is coming from the vSphere API. The disk queue, this is a Windows metric. Okay, in this case, it's a perform-based metric. So I think we're one of the only solutions out there that actually combine different data sources in a single real-time view. So let's continue the investigation. I'm going to drill down into the sessions view. Okay, so this just happens to be an RDS box right, which is running multiple user sessions. You can see here we have 3 user sessions running right now on this specific box. And again, the virtual expert is highlighting for me the session is causing the issue. In this case, is my session here, sorry. And finally, I can drill down into the processes view. Okay, so what I'm seeing right now is a live list of all the processes running inside this specific session. Okay, so obviously for end user computing environments, this is a great exercise. You can pinpoint, the browser, the ERP, the CRM, which is causing any kind of bottleneck. Now, we do have one last trick here. We can right-click on the user session, and we have a built-in action called Get Session Screenshot. Depending on the customer environment, or I would say privacy policy, you can do this with or without user approval. This can obviously be customized. I'm not going to ask anyone because it's my session here. And in a matter of a few seconds, ControlUp will pull up the real-time display, and it will show me what the user is doing right now. So as you might notice, this user is currently running, or my session here is running IO meter, which is what we use to create this pretty massive IO load. Okay, so this is just an example. We can obviously use this drill down screenshot exercise to figure out basically any issue happening in our environment. Okay, now I mentioned that ControlUp is not just a monitoring solution. We also provide remediation capabilities. So just a quick taste here, I can right-click the process and run actions like kill process. I can set process affinity. I can even throttle the CPU. Okay, so pretty massive. Now, since we are dealing with VMware folks here, I know that storage is a major concern for most of you. We do have another view which is kind of focusing on the storage entities. Okay, so the storage view will show you a flat list of all the data stores we have found across the different clusters. So obviously, VMware data stores, Hyper-V file systems, Nutanix, whatever, right? Any logical data store will appear in here. So we are now seeing essentially the same issue but from the storage point of view. So you can see that this specific data store is suffering from the high IO usage. I can drill down and see which specific data store ESXi combination is causing the issue. And then I can drill down and see the specific VMDK, all the VMDKs running on that specific data store hypervisor combination, and figure out which, in this case, VMDK VM is causing the issue. Now, if our agent is deployed inside the guest OS, we can do the same kind of drilling down and go directly to the sessions and processes running inside the guest OS. We can also see the logical disks and virtual disks. Okay, so again, we can pinpoint on issues either from the compute layer or the storage layer. By the way, Annie or Amir, if you're seeing any questions that you think might interest the audience at this point, feel free to interrupt. Okay, so I want to jump to another use case. You know what? Let's just, if we just to kind of prove the point, I'm going to actually go ahead here and provide remediation. In this case, it's quite simple, right? It's a mere IO meter. It's not a business app. So I'm simply going to select the relevant processes. I'm going to run the kill process action, and just to verify it, I can either check the metrics or go ahead and put another screenshot and just verify the app is no longer running. Okay, which is the case, as we can see, right. Okay, not right now, but in a few seconds. Okay, but we can wait for 20 seconds, which is the default hypervisor data collection, and see that the metrics are going back to a normal rate. You can already see here on the session level that IO usage has dropped to 0. And this is because the agent-based data collection is running every 3 seconds. So it's real time in your face, right? And if we go back to the host view, you will see in a matter of probably 5 or 10 seconds, you will see that the IO usage is dropping, like what we see right here. Okay, so I'm moving on to the next demo exercise, something quite cool I've prepared for you guys. So I'm going to focus on a bunch of web servers. Okay, these are 5 web servers. I think they're running Apache. And as you might notice here, we have one web server which is in critical stress. And as before, we can see this is IO bound. This is IO related. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to drill down into this specific box, and I'm going to check the process view, and I can see that McAfee, the McAfee scanner, is the one process consuming, lots of I/O, obviously causing stress on this box. Now, if I'm looking on the 5 boxes in general, I can do the same trick here. I can go to processes and can try and compare the behavior of the McAfee process. And you will see here that indeed only on a single server, only on, let's see here, only on Web3, which is the server exhibiting the issue, we see the abnormal McAfee I/O usage. Okay, so we know what is going on. We know that McAfee is the culprit in this case, but we want to dig down and see what is the exact root cause. Now, we have a concept in ControlUp called script-based actions. Script-based actions is a way for you guys to kind of infinitely scale or enhance the built-in actions list, right? We support VB, PowerShell, and Bash scripts. So you guys can go ahead and basically create your own scripts, choose the scripting language, and just do your thing, right? The cool thing here is that we have quite a few community actions available for everyone, right? So you can see the list here. You can see that, for example, for VDI environments, we have some pretty popular scripts that help customers analyze the login duration. You can see the numbers here; they're quite impressive, and I'll show you that. I'll show you this in action. But for now, I'm going to focus on scripts to try to help me figure out what's causing McAfee on this specific box to go wild. Okay, so I'm going to select these 5 web servers, and I'm going to run a script-based action against them, which will help me check the McAfee agent configuration specifically on these 5 servers. Now, the way the script-based action output screen works is that it identifies the outputs, and it's putting it in groups based on the differences. Okay, so you can see here, let me focus here a bit. You can see that we ended up with 2 results group. Okay, one contains web server 3, which is the server in question, and the other contains the other web servers. And here we can see the outputs. And for those of you out there with the keen eye, you can see here that there is one difference, which is the log level. And obviously on web server 3, the log level is verbose. So probably someone forgot verbose login turned on, which obviously caused a major. Okay, so this is obviously the culprit, and what I'm going to do right now, I actually have available another script-based action here, which can go ahead and set the login level to error on all the boxes I've just selected. Okay, so obviously it will take a bit more on Web3 because it's kind of stressed, but once this is applied, it should fix the issue and lower the I/O usage back to normal rates. So another use case of how we can use the real-time view and the script-based action engine to isolate the root cause, and in most cases actually remediate or fix that. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next demo exercise. Now it's going to be focused a bit more on end-user computing and how we enable our customers to monitor user experience and to optimize that. Just before that, you see here that the script is completed. So if you go to the processes view, you can see here that McAfee has gone back to a normal rate, both from a CPU and I/O perspective. Okay, so again, real-time, remediation, visibility in your hands. Okay, so let's move on to the end-user computing. It's actually the agenda I mentioned here. So we're now going to cover how ControlUp can help you guys optimize the end-user experience for your Horizon Citrix environments. Okay, so let me switch to the sessions view. So as I mentioned earlier, the sessions view is a great way to see all of your end users who are currently logged on to any of your VDI or RDSH-based environments. Okay, I do want to note here before we move on that everything here is all the data you're seeing in real time is captured in ControlUp Insights. You know what? Let me quickly show you that before we move on to the user experience part. So just so you will be rest assured that we are not just dealing with real-time data, ControlUp Insights is our historical reporting and analytics platform, as I mentioned earlier. And this is where you can actually access the historical data. So it's based on a report group. We will cover these virtual expert findings in the demo scenario, but just for now, it's enough to say that we have reports that cover each and every metric you've seen in the real-time view. So just for example, the session activity enables you to go back in time all the way up to 1 year, depending on your licensing structure. And you can see, for example, historical sessions with most of the metrics which are available in the real-time view. Okay, so moving back to the real-time console here. So as mentioned, ControlUp is a great platform for optimizing and monitoring user experience. Let's see what we have here. So obviously we list all the sessions. As you saw before, we monitor live CPU memory and I usage, but I'm now going to focus on the user experience part. Okay, now there are quite a few metrics or KPIs which might affect the user experience, or the way the user senses environment. And I'm happy to say that we cover all of them, and we also provide, in some cases, remediation and additional troubleshooting steps. Let's start with logon duration. Okay, logon duration is essentially the time it takes a user to log on to his Windows box and to actually receive a responsive Explorer shell. Okay, so in ControlUp, we expose the logon duration column, which shows you for each user running in your environment how long it took to actually reach a responsive desktop shell status from the moment he actually logged in. Okay, now in this UI, we can show you the breakdown of the various logon duration steps. So we show how long it took to load the Windows profile, how long it took to process group policy settings, how long it took to load the desktop shell, and the other column is kind of a placeholder for all the other phases which we don't monitor directly. And I'll cover that in a sec. Okay, so in this case, you can see we have a user session that experienced a pretty high logon duration. You can see that it took almost 80 seconds. And by using the virtual expert navigation, we can see that the culprit is group policy load time. Now, I'm going to, again, use the script-based actions, and I'm going to show you how we can dig deeper here. We have a script-based action called Analyze Group Policy Extension Load Time. Essentially, it runs on the target computer, and it shows me a list of all the group policy extensions that were loaded during the logon phase, how long it took to process each extension, and which GPO or GPOs actually triggered that. So in this case, we can see it's quite clear that the drive mapping is the culprit. It took almost 50 seconds to process, and we can see which conveniently named GPO is causing the issue here. Okay, so here it's just a matter of sending this screenshot to your GPO team, or if you're the happy guy who is in charge of GPOs, just open this GPO. In this case, I can tell you that I've configured a few drive mappings which point to non-existent file servers. So obviously they time out and cause a slow logon. So we have some pretty massive tools around logon duration, whether it's the script-based actions, the real-time metrics, and the insights reports. We have a full-blown insights report which shows you the average logon duration in your specific environment. You can do it based on the entire organization or specific silos. You can go back in time, you can see the average, you can see the breakdown. And one of the unique differentiators here is the ability to compare this to a community benchmark. Okay, so we have almost 1,000 enterprise customers sending us data. We use the anonymized stats. We just take the numbers, and each month we update the benchmark, which allows you to kind of understand how you guys are, behaving against the global benchmark, which is pretty cool. Okay, so I'm moving on here. Let's go back to the default presets. Okay, so we covered the logon duration metric. Okay, another essential part of the user experience is how long it takes to actually launch applications once you're logged on. Okay, and for that we have a really interesting column called average application load time. Let's focus on my session here real quick, and I'm going to drill down And you can see here that once we drill down into the processes view, we actually have the application load time for each running process. Okay, so if I will open, I will open a really small app like Notepad. Obviously, it's started in less than a second. It takes ControlUp about 20 seconds to identify the launch time and populate it here. So, okay, Notepad was a bit faster. You can see here that we identify that Notepad is running, and we can see that the launch time is less than 1 second. Okay, let's choose a more interesting use case. Here we have a large Excel file. It will probably take something like 20 seconds to load this file. So I'm doing it live here. And once this is up and running, we'll go back to the live grid and we'll see if ControlUp indeed accurately figured out how long it took to launch this specific application. Okay, so now we're up and running. I will minimize this app, and you can see Excel is added in here with the accurate time it took to actually launch this process. So ControlUp enables video admins to track exactly which process running, what was the app launch time. This also go to insights for historical reporting and analytics. By the way, we also have the ability to provide some more details about the application launch time using an external utility we wrote. Feel free to contact our pre-sale support to get data about this. Okay, moving forward with user experience, we have latency and bandwidth metrics. Okay, so you can see here, like you see this session here. This is one of our support guys connecting from the US office to our ControlUp corporate office. So you can see that unlike my session here, or this demo user who is coming from the ControlUp Israeli office, Robert's session is coming via the internet, and it's experiencing a pretty high session latency, okay, a bit more than 200 milliseconds. So this is a great way to understand what's the experience from a networking point of view. We support Citrix HDX, ICA, we support VMware PCOIP and Blast. We also support RDP. So all of these remoting protocols are covered with these latency and bandwidth usage metrics. Okay, so these are the major metrics in regards to user experience. There is one last thing I want to show you before we move on to the analytics part. Browsers are a big thing in end-user computing. Let me focus here on my session here again. One of the features we added in one of the latest releases is the ability to actually track the live URLs users are browsing into. Okay, so in this case, I open Internet Explorer in my session. I have two tabs running. One of them is obviously the VMUG homepage. And if I'll go back to the console here and I'll filter it to show me specifically iExplore sessions, you will see here the live URL we're currently working on a per tab basis. Now, again, this might be considered a private data set. This can be disabled. This can be narrowed down to specific domains. But out of the box, we can show you guys exactly which URLs the user is currently visiting attached to the relevant Internet Explorer process. Okay. Any questions on this point in regards to the real-time features, the storage troubleshooting, the user experience?
I have a question here that I could probably answer now. It says, does the tool let you know if the server has rebooted?
Okay, yeah, great question. I'll try to expand on this a bit. So ControlUp can alert you on all kinds of conditions and triggers. Okay, I actually haven't shown this, but it's a good time to show it. We have a feature called incident triggers. Okay, this is essentially our triggers and alerting feature. In here, you can create triggers based on all kinds of conditions, right? So one thing would be to notify you when a computer goes down. Okay, let me show you how this looks like in here. So what you see on screen, this is the different conditions or trigger types you can configure to get alerts. Okay, so for example, if you want to be notified when a server is booting, you can configure the computer down alert. This will trigger when we detect that the computer is no longer available. We can create a trap or a trigger based on specific Windows events, and we can create events based on stress-related metrics. So if the free space on one drive is like dropping, if a specific process is consuming high CPU usage for more than 30 seconds, all of these are valid scenarios for the trigger mechanism. Let's see if I can show you one interesting example in here. So I think I have something in regards to log on duration here. Let me find that real quick. Okay, so this is interesting again for end user experience scenarios. What you see here, this is configured to trigger whenever someone logs on into your environment and the log-on duration was higher than 1 minute. Okay, obviously I can add filters in here, like I want to trigger this only for specific VIP users, etc. But what you see is relevant for any metrics you have seen, right? So I configure this with additional filtering, and once this is recognized by the ControlUp monitor service, an incident will be recorded to the database, and we can attach to this incident various alerting options. These would include email alerts, a mobile push notification to the ControlUp mobile app, or you can record this in the event log, which is how we actually integrate ControlUp alerts with solutions like ServiceNow and other ticketing or alerting systems. Okay, so Annie, hopefully this answered the question.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I'm moving on to the sorry, here. So I want to cover right now some of the major use cases we can achieve by using ControlUp Insights. So just a brief overview of this Insights web application. So essentially the data stream which feeds Insights database is the ControlUp monitor service, as I mentioned during the architecture slide. So again, just to revisit this, the monitor service is continuously connected to all the data sources you have seen in the real-time console, hypervisors, agents, etc. And it's continuously uploading data to the Insights database. An Insights application is our user interface, which allows you to run your own reports or to consume our built-in dashboards. Okay, the top insights is the homepage. This is where you can see KPIs, anomalies, and issues based on the last 24 hours of activity. Okay, as you can see here, this is divided into categories. So we have, for each category, we have, again, the anomalies, KPIs, and issues. We focus on applications, on hosts, VMs, and users. So let's look on a few examples. So if you look on the hosts category, we highlight for you guys the top 5 hypervisors that exhibited the longest CPU peaks. In our case, we have a major CPU usage, so it's a very long time. We show you the top, I/O usage, latency, and some kind of like around, over the day utilization for the major KPIs. Okay, if you look on end users, for example, we can show you the average log-on duration. We can show you the peak number of concurrent sessions running on your environment in the previous 24 hours. We can show you the top 5 sessions with the slowest log-ons. Everything you see here is drillable, right? So I can click on this widget here, for example. It will open in the background. So this widget here will actually show me the top 5 computers. Okay, the ones you're seeing here, the top 5 computers that had the longest CPU peak in the previous 24 hours. Okay, so it's actually opening the computer trends report, which is available here as a standalone report. But in this case, the query is already directed to show me these specific 5 computers, which I know had CPU issues. Okay, and because we have access to the process data, I will let the query finish, and once it's finishing, I can actually click on one of the high computer CPU issues, like in this case here. I can click on the data point, and Insights in real time will query the database, and it will pull the top 5 processes who caused issue in that specific time frame. Okay, in this case, you can see it's the same McAfee agent I was working before in the live demo. Here I can see it from an historical perspective. Okay, so again, top insights is where you go, I guess, initially each morning to see what's going on, find issues, and also anomalies. The small widgets you see here, each of them is highlighting an anomaly in the data. Okay, so Let's look on this case, for example. Here we can see we identified 2 user accounts who logged in after 30 days of inactivity. Okay, so again, I can drill down. In this case, ControlUp will drill down into the session activity report, which is a standalone report, but in this case, it will show me these specific 2 users who, for some reason, logged in after 30 days of inactivity. Now, this could be, someone who came back from a vacation, or someone who's not working too hard, or this could be someone who, I don't know, you're basically terminated, but for some reason still has access. Okay, so we're trying to highlight the anomalies in the data in these specific widgets you see above the other widgets. Okay, so the other report I wanted to highlight with you guys is probably one of the most used reports, the most used analytics engine in ControlUp. It's the sizing recommendation report. Now, for those of you who are familiar with VROps and other sizing or capacity planning tools, I know they have lots of features around that. I think we are different in the sense that we provide a really clean, intuitive KPIs. And in addition, we provide real-life, simple recommendations that will allow you to reclaim CPU and RAM resources to your clusters. And let me show you what I mean here, okay? So the upper side of the report is kind of like high-level KPI widgets, okay? So you can see this data is based on 1 month. So the size recommendation is crunching data for the past 30 days in real time, and then it's displaying the results. So in this case, I'm covering almost 100 agent-based computers. And you can see that my situation, although comparing to other environments, it's not that bad. You can see on the individual level that we have 71 computers who are over-provisioned from a CPU perspective, and 56% are over-provisioned from a RAM perspective. And the interesting number here, let me just put this here. Here you can see how many gigabytes of RAM I can reclaim to the cluster if I will properly size each and every workload, and the same is true for virtual CPUs. Okay, so it's big numbers, and this is a small environment. I can tell you up front that we have quite a few customers who already use the data here to reclaim terabytes of memory and hundreds of virtual CPUs without losing performance. Okay, and why can I say it with such certainty is the below grid you see here. So this is the actual recommendation on a per workload basis. Okay, let me sort this based on CPU's recommendations. Okay, so let's consider this workload here. This is one of our Insights on-premises servers. In the grid, you can see the number of assigned CPUs, and you can see the suggestion, and you can see the assigned RAM and the suggestion. Now, I can expand this guy here, and Insights will pull data in real time for the previous 30 days, and will kind of, prove to me that the recommendation is actually solid. Okay, so let's see what we see here. This is the CPU chart. You can see the available. You can see the blue line is the assigned number of CPUs. The dotted line is what we recommend, and the lower chart is the actual CPU usage every 1 hour based on the data set we have. So you can see that we never went, we kind of went close to 5 CPUs. We never crossed that, and this is why we're suggesting 5 CPUs. And the same is true for RAM usage. You can see the assigned number, you can see the recommendation, you can see the actual RAM usage over the last 30 days. Okay, so it's rock solid. This is based on in-guest data, which is much more accurate than a hypervisor trying to pull that from the outside. So I really recommend you guys to go ahead, deploy the monitor service, push the agent to a few VMs and get these recommendations. One note here that it will take, we need at least 2 weeks of data before we pull data in this report for it to be actually consistent. So this is top insights. The last report here, before we'll show you a few more details about the real-time console in 7.3, is the environment assessment report. This is a pretty massive report. Again, it's based on 30 days of activity, and it's a bit similar to the top insights dashboard, I guess, but here we see data across 1 month, which is really eye-opener for some data points. So it's a lot of data. We're not going to cover it in here, but just a few highlights. You can see here the OS distribution, so which OSs have we found from a Windows and hypervisor perspective. We can show you the top apps based on instance count and unique user count. We can show you user metrics like login duration and latency over time. We can show you the top consumers based on 1 month of data. So you can see, for example, that in our case, this specific VM is the top consumer from a CPU perspective. You can see that from an app perspective, this SQL Server here is obviously the top RAM hogger. Okay, so lots of data. Go ahead and explore that. Okay, so this is, again, a quick taste of some of the insights, reporting, and analytics capability. I do want to leave time for questions, but I owe you guys 2 more things from the real-time view. So A, 2 more things I haven't shown you in the real-time view, which I think you will like. Okay, let's go back to one of the computers view here. In ControlUp, we have a feature called controllers, which enables you guys to select any number of Windows servers or endpoints you want to compare, and you can go ahead and compare any of these Windows-related areas. Okay, so for example, manage registry. ControlUp will switch to the controllers view here. It will collect the data from the relevant. You know what? This is a pretty heavy VM, so I'll remove that. So what you see here. You know what? Let me refresh the data so it will be nice and yeah. Okay, so what we see here is essentially a merged view of the local machine hive, and using the color codes, you can see what's common and what's different between the servers I've selected in here. Okay, so obviously the classes key, it's common to every Windows box, so it's yellow. But if you look on the citrus key here, it's blue because it exists only on some of the workloads I've selected. Okay, so this is a great way to highlight differences in configuration for applications, for agents. You can drill down into one of the, let's drill down to one of the, I don't know, ODBC keys in here, and you can also go all the way to the actual value and compare it between different hosts. Okay, so a great way to pinpoint configuration differences. And it's not just a read-only tool. You can go ahead here and actually manipulate the registry and duplicate keys, distribute binaries across all the managed computers. Okay, the same concept applies for file system. I can quickly compare the file system across multiple hosts. I can verify that one of my apps is indeed using the same DLLs, for example, the same binary version. And just like before, I can actually run actions from here. I can duplicate files, I can send files from a central location to multiple servers, etc. So these are the controllers. The same thing exists for Windows services, and I can also compare installed updates. Okay, so it's a massive feature. I'm just giving you a quick taste. Another thing I want to show you guys, and I know quite a few out there are actually starting to migrate environments into the Amazon cloud or Azure. So I want to show you how the Amazon integration works in regards to EC2 troubleshooting and monitoring. So I'm now focusing on the EC2 integration we have here into one specific region. And you can see that we dynamically enumerate all the EC2 instances we found in that specific region. And we support 3 types of column for Amazon discovered environments. A, that would be metadata column. So we show the instance type, the state, availability zone, anything which matters to anyone who is managing EC2. We have CloudWatch-based metrics, and probably the most interesting metric is the cost, right? So we show in real time the Amazon-based cost for each instance. And if you think about it, you can correlate the trigger engine with this feature, and you can be notified in real time if anyone is actually starting a new EC2 instances which cost more than $2 an hour, for example. So it's pretty useful and pretty intuitive in that sense. Okay, so again, we can go on and on, but I think you guys got the notion in regards to the power behind the real-time view and the insights analytics. The last thing I want to cover before we wrap up is the upcoming ControlUp 7.3 version. Okay, so I just happen to have a demo environment ready here. Okay, so what you're seeing here is this is a pre-beta version of ControlUp 7.3. The beta is planned to start in mid-November, so in less than 4 weeks from now. By the way, if anyone wants to join the beta, simply send an email to support and just state your your email address, and the fact that you listen to this webinar. So in ControlUp 7.3, we have all kinds of enhancements, but due to time limitations, we're going to cover the two major additions in 7.3. Okay, so the first one, and this is the first time ever we're doing it, is in-guest Linux agent data or process data. Okay, so previous to 7.3, the only way for us to collect data about Linux-based servers was via the hypervisor APIs. So we can obviously show, on the VM level if it's, utilizing CPU, RAM, I/O, but we weren't able to actually drill down into the Linux guest and see live processes. So this is enhanced in 7.3. Here you can see 4 managed Linux computers. You can see that one of them has a really high CPU usage. So now in 7.3, I can actually double-click this metric and drill down and see which in-guest processes are causing this issue. Okay, so everything we have seen in 7.2 in regards to virtual expert, remediation, everything is expanded to Linux-based workloads in 7.3. So that's a pretty major enhancement. It's relevant for, I think, anyone who's managing, server workloads in the enterprise. So it's pretty cool. Behind the scenes, we're using an SSH agentless approach to get this data. We actually have a data collection in place, which runs SSH connections to each and every managed Linux endpoint every 10 seconds. It's pulling the data and it's sending it to the console. It's very lightweight. The usage, the CPU usage is less than 1%. Memory usage is almost 0. So it's looking pretty good from a resource footprint perspective. The other major metric we added in ControlUp 7.3 is vSAN support. Okay, so vSAN is a really growing market in VMware. Everyone is doing these days hyperconverged. I think it's great. Before 7.3, we supported all the regular data stores. In 7.3, we are adding support for vSAN-based data stores. We did quite an extensive work here. We are covering, I think, all the major vSAN metrics, which might be interesting for anyone who's managing these parts. You can see the traditional I/O usage and latency, but you can also see congestions. You can see outstanding I/O requests. Anything which will be relevant to understand what's the current health of the vSAN-based data store. Okay, and just like the other ControlUp concepts, you can always drill down and see the way the vSAN data store behaves on a per hypervisor connection, and you can see the virtual disk running inside the vSAN-based data store. Okay, so this is coming in 7.3. Beta is due in less than 4 weeks. Feel free to apply and test it in your own environment. Okay, so Amir, before we wrap up, any questions from the audience you want to cover in this session?
Yeah, there's a few questions in here.
Okay.
Let's see. So one says, does ControlUp integrate directly with ServiceNow for ticketing and incident creation?
Okay, so good question regarding ServiceNow. I know it's a popular solution out there. So the question is yes and no. So the answer is yes and no. So yes, we provide integration. We have a few customers that already integrated ControlUp incident triggers with ServiceNow. No, because it's not a direct integration. We don't leverage the ServiceNow APIs. We're doing it via the ControlUp event log triggers. So we actually create an event log when we discover an issue. The event log contains all the relevant data points, the server name, the process ID, the user, whatever is relevant for that specific incident. And we leverage ServiceNow email integration or event log integration to actually integrate the two products.
And I placed into the chat a blog about how this is done by one of the experts in the community.
All right. Anything else you want to pop up right now?
Yoni, there was a question about the Linux flavors that are supported with the upcoming 7.3.
Okay, so what we are officially supporting and testing in the lab is is, as you can see here, it's CentOS and Red Hat. We might support more versions when we are nearing the beta and GA, but for now, officially we support CentOS and Red Hat.
And lastly, there was a question about licensing between the real-time console and Insight. Are these separate? How does it work?
Okay, so essentially, the ControlUp license is not too complicated. You basically need one ControlUp license per entity you cover, right? So just a simple example, if you want to manage 100 VDI sessions and 100 servers, you will need 200 ControlUp licenses. That's pretty much it. We have tiers. We have ControlUp Pro, Enterprise, and Platinum, where the major difference, there are some differences, but the major difference is the retention period in ControlUp Insights, right? So I mentioned in ControlUp Insights that we can go back all the way to 1 year worth of data. This is obviously depending on the license. So Pro will enable you guys to have 1 day of retention. Enterprise will enable you 1 month of retention, and Platinum will provide full 1 year data retention. Okay, so guys, I really want to thank you for your time. Hopefully you have seen the value behind ControlUp. As mentioned on this slide, we offer a fully functioning 21 days free trial. If any one of you guys is attending VMworld Barcelona, go ahead and visit us. We'll have a booth there with some great pre-sale engineers. Feel free to ask questions and enjoy the rest of your day.
Great. Well, Yoni, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. As a reminder, you will all receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast. And to find out more about the VMUG webcast program, you can visit vmug.com/learn. And please make sure to complete the short online evaluation that will pop up as you exit the webcast and let us know how you thought today's session went. And from all of us here at VMUG, thank you and have a great rest of your day.